Okay, first thing at the website, you notice Relay Health. Well, McKesson changed its name here to Relay Health. Second of all, you don't need to register with McKesson in order to view the reports, because the reports will have their 4-digit payer ID number, the electronic address for us to submit the claims onto. But it can be a good idea to register with McKesson, and after you submit your claims electronically, they'll send back reports. Once in a while, you may get a report that has a code on there that you may not understand, but because you register with McKesson, you can log in and look up those codes. So to get started without registering with McKesson, I can go ahead and click on Payer Connections link. Scroll down just a little bit. Underneath the Claims and Remittance section, we're looking at two reports, the Professional Claims Commercial and the Professional Claims State. Now remember, your commercial is going to be all your commercial carriers for like Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare, and your state carriers will be like Medicaid, Medi-Cal, Medicare, and also includes Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Now because we're working on Aetna and we want to find the 4-digit payer ID number so we can send the claim on electronically, it's going to be in the report here by clicking on the Professional Claims Commercial report link. Now this report is going to be divided into basically two sections. Over on the left-hand side is going to be a list of most commercial insurance carriers, and then over to the right is whether or not we can bill electronically to that commercial carrier through McKesson. And you can see if I scroll down here, there's quite a few. Now we're trying to work on Aetna here, so to quickly go to Aetna, you can go ahead and press Control F on the keyboard to pull up your find. Type in the word Aetna here as you see, and click Next, or you can hit Enter on the keyboard, and it'll take you right to, if I scroll down just a bit, the first of many Aetnas. And of course what you'll need to do now is identify which Aetna it is. Aetna EPO, Golden, HMO. After you identify the correct Aetna, the second thing you want to do is find out whether or not you can bill this electronically through McKesson to Aetna. And how you do that is you go over to the second section here over to the right hand side. Now let me scroll to the top here so you can see the headings of each column. The first heading is the most important heading in this report. It's the AG or Agreement Needed column. That means, do we need an agreement in order to submit this claim electronically? It's either going to be yes or no. And you can see as I scroll down, most of them are going to be no. Most commercial carriers, you don't need an agreement. You can start submitting your claim electronically. However, when I scroll down far enough, you can see Aetna JVHL has a yes, we do need an agreement. Now what that means is that we can't submit a claim electronically because Aetna JVHL and McKesson need an agreement. So what you can do is follow these steps. You'll request the contract from AdvancedMD and fill it out. Then forward it to AdvancedMD. AdvancedMD forwards it to McKesson. McKesson will process it and send it on to the insurance carrier. Then the carrier will either accept or deny it within about 6 to 8 weeks. Then McKesson notifies AdvancedMD, and in turn AdvancedMD will notify you. So if they notify you and say yes, it's a go, then you can come over here, and this is the electronic address to be able to submit your claims on to in this third column and write down this 4-digit payer ID number. That's where the gold is, 2760 if you've been approved. So what you do is you take that number here, you can either write it down or you can highlight it and Control C to copy on your keyboard, go back to the carrier and Control V as in Victor to paste it. And you're good to go as far as setting up the first couple of fields here, and in particular getting the electronic address. I'm going to delete that because that's not what we're looking for. I'm going to go back here, and you can see when in doubt, if you're not sure if it's EPO or Aetna Choice POS, you can see that most of them are 6400. So when in doubt, because most of them are the same here, I can just go ahead and type in 6400. And then we can continue on filling in the rest of the fields. But before we do that, let's go back and finish up the reports here, because you have a little bit more flexibility or another option here. You could say, well, I can only submit my claims electronically, or I can only drop them to paper. Well, you have a third option in that you can also outsource dropping it to paper to McKesson. Now this is what I mean. Let's scroll to the top, and you can see this column heading is Paper Carrier Payer ID Number. Of course, the EMC stands for Electronical Medical Claim, and then CPID Carrier Payer ID Number. So this is our electronic column, the third column, and this is the fourth column. It's optional. It's up to you. What that means is that if you take that number, and you can see most of them as the insurance carriers are 1360, that's the generic. If you take that number and you go back here and you type in 1360, that code alone will tell McKesson that you don't want to submit it electronically. You want McKesson to drop it to paper, stuff it and stamp it and mail it off for you. and it's about a fee of like 52 cents or something like that. In any case, you can check with AdvancedMD for the fee, and that's per claim, and that includes the price of the stamp. So you can outsource this if you don't have anybody to stuff and stamp your claims for you. So go ahead and delete that, type in 6400, go back to my report, and one final thing here is that if you scroll down, you'll see that once in a while that you'll get a different number here, 1329. Keep an eye on that, but when in doubt, if there's no carrier here at all that's listed, you can type in 1360, and that, like I said, that's just a number McKesson gets. It says, look, just drop this to paper and stuff it and stamp it and mail it off for them. Now, we've talked about the commercial carriers here, but we haven't covered the state carriers. Let's do that now. And it's pretty simple here. I'm going to close out of this screen, go back to my other screen here. Now let's go ahead and click on the report link for professional claims state. And it's divided into two sections basically. The left-hand side is going to be sorted alphabetically by state. So if you scroll down here, you got Alaska, Arizona, California, and then you can see you got California Blue Cross, FEP only, Blue Shield, HMO, Blue Shield, Medi-Cal. What you want to do is that when you set up these insurance carriers, your state carriers, you'll do the same thing. You'll go ahead and you'll type in the name, the P.O. box, and then for your electronic carrier payer ID number, again, you're going to come here to the third column, and you can check that on me here by scrolling up. EMC, Electronic Medical Claim Carrier Payer ID number. And ironically for California, it's rare, but most state carriers need an agreement. But California, at least for Blue Cross, doesn't need an agreement. You can see that in the first column. It says no. That's fantastic. That means we can just take this number right here, 4417, copy it, paste it in our Carrier Payer ID field there in our insurance screen, and then we can just start billing claims electronically. That's great. But most of the time, it's going to require an agreement, and you'll get a Y for yes. Now, here's the thing. When you signed on with AdvancedMD, you should have been given papers or EDI agreements to fill out on which state carriers you want to be able to start submitting your claims electronically to. So by the time you're doing this training and setting up your office key, it should be in the process of about 6 to 8 weeks. Now, what will happen within that time is that when you do get approved, AdvancedMD will shoot you an email saying that you've been approved. If you want to know what the status is of your EDI agreements, if you've been approved or how long it's going to be, you can always send an email to enrollments@advancedmd.com and ask them what is the status of your EDI agreements and have you been approved yet. It's always good to follow up with AdvancedMD because sometimes once in a while they may not get the agreements, maybe it got lost in the mail, but you don't want to take that chance. You want to keep on top of things. So for the state carriers, if an agreement's needed, or even the few commercial carriers, what do you do in the meantime? Well, you can do one of two things. Like I said, you can either go ahead and drop them to paper in-house, stuff them and stamp them and mail them off yourself, or you can go ahead and in this fourth column, up at the top, the paper CPID column, you can write down that number, and of course this would be to California here. Write down any corresponding number. Well, you can see California doesn't need an agreement, so I wouldn't use this. I would go ahead with the electronic medical carrier payer ID number here. But for those that do need an agreement, like I said, you can always write down that paper ID number, paste it right in the CPID field, and then for about, like I said, 52 cents or so per claim, they'll drop it and stuff it and stamp it, mail it off for you until you get an approval. Once you get an approval, then you can go ahead and change that so it goes out electronically. Now, in the insurance carrier screen, you can change, you can set it up to prevent it from going electronically because you haven't been approved yet, and whether or not you want to drop it to paper in-house or outsource it to McKesson and write down in this fourth column that paper CPID number. So what I'm saying here is go ahead and set up all your state carriers, your commercial carriers. You got two different reports. Look in both reports. Find out which carrier it is over to the left-hand side. Find out if you need an agreement or not. If you do, then make sure you get the ball rolling with AdvancedMD. You can always email enrollments@advancedmd.com, find out the status, or if you need more agreements to set up. Otherwise, if it's a no, you're good to go. Put in that 4-digit payer ID number in this column here, and you can start billing electronically. In other words, set up all your carriers. I'm going to close out of here. And before we go back to our carrier screen here and close out of McKesson completely, you can see the carrier screen. And we'll talk about these two boxes. This is what I was referring to just a little bit earlier, is that while you're waiting on your EDI agreements, you can check that box. And what it does is it looks at your system defaults, and your system defaults will define whether or not you're going to drop to paper or just hold your claims until you get the approval from Advanced MD. We'll cover that in just a second, so keep that in mind. I'm going to uncheck that and go back to the report here. Now, we talked about the commercial and state professional claims report. Basically, that's all you need, right? Well, I'm going to go off track just a little bit here, and the only other report I think is really important is your institutional and professional commercial and state report. Now, the reason why I refer you to this is because remember earlier how I told you never to look on the back of the patient's insurance card and to pull the CPID number off of that and put that over here in this field, because it's always going to be wrong, because that's not McKesson. We actually have to look at McKesson reports. Well, that can still be of help to us, because what McKesson did in this report here is that they set it up where you can sometimes cross-reference other clearinghouses' carrier payer ID number with McKesson's and find its, I guess you could say, an interpreter, or the 4-digit payer ID number for it. So let me go ahead and click on it. And then what you'll do is you'll scroll down, and probably the easiest thing to do is do Control F, type in the number of the carrier payer ID number on the back of the insurance card, whatever that is, and I don't know, I'm just making one up. And then when you hit next, it'll take you right to it in this column here. In fact, let me scroll to the top again so you can see what column we're in. You can see that this payer ID column is for other clearinghouses, basically. It's not a 4-digit payer ID number. The first column here is a 4-digit payer ID number that McKesson uses. So that's what you're doing, is you're cross-referencing. Is you do Control F, find it. Once you scroll down, and let's say it's 21356, then you're going to look back to the left, and that's the 4-digit payer ID number. You can go ahead, copy and paste it back into your CPID box here. Now, before you start getting excited about that, if you do come across, like, let's say a claim here has two numbers that are exactly the same, but over here they have an institutional, I for institutional, and P for professional. Always go with the professional. Institutional is your UB92s and so forth. So we want to cross-reference always with the P for professional if we've got two payer ID numbers from one clearinghouse. So instead of using 4552, it's going to be 5430. So that's a little extra spiffy to help you out. I'll close out of here, go back to the report here, to look back of the insurance card and use that to cross-reference in this report. So like